Hey everyone, we are back again with another Dragonheir video, and in this video we'll be going over the event reward. That's right, it's going to be a Utior showcase. So I was finally able to manage to get him from the event. I think it took me about 2 weeks, so I have him leveled up now. And before we actually go into it, like even reading his skills, where did he go? He's 96. Yeah, there he is. So the way his skills are, he's going to be placing up defense up 2 and resurrection at death on all allies for 10 seconds. I think this definitely could have been better, something with defense up and heals or something else. His battle skill is pretty strong. You definitely want the attack penalty too. On the boss, any PvE content, this is amazing. Healing prohibition is actually pretty good in PvP, and on Grave of Rot if you're really struggling. But I really don't think that this unit is a very solid carry, and that's mainly because, like, initially my thought was that this passive is going to trigger whenever a summon unit dies as well. So whenever whatever skeletons, fear bear, whatever monsters they spawn, whenever they die, he gets like 10% ultimate energy. But when I did the test, it doesn't seem to be the case. So it only procs if somebody in the enemy unit dies or somebody in your team, an actual hero, dies. So the hero description is correct. I mean, they're not wrong here, but the problem is that it's not as strong as you would think it is, right? Because if you think about PvE, this is only, he's not resurrecting people. He's just providing this buff. If he was resurrecting people, then this passive would make sense, right? Like, okay, somebody died on your team, you get 10% ultimate energy. But even on the enemy team, if somebody dies, he's going to get this 10% energy. But when you're able to kill somebody on the enemy team in PvP, you really don't need this 10% ultimate energy for something like this. Because the first person to die on the enemy team is usually going to be their DPS unit or their tank. So it's a very weak passive. I think the passive, if they can buff it, make it so that even when the summon unit dies, then it can be really powerful. But I think either make this a resurrection, like it's not just a buff, but he also resurrects. We only have like a couple of heroes in the game who can resurrect, and it doesn't have to be full team, so he's not on par with an elemental exclusive like Mithrasi, although I don't see why he shouldn't be, because Mithrasi is doing three things, right? Mithrasi provides buff immunity, debuff immunity. She provides a resurrection at death buff, and she also resurrects people. Anybody who on your team, if they're dead, she's going to resurrect them. So that what makes her really powerful in arena. But his ultimate is not as strong. So my initial, I tried using him in arena, but it wasn't worth it. The only good thing about his skills is that the scroll requirement is pretty low. So you only need like 6 scrolls to fully max him out. But outside of that, it's pure garbage. Like, you can increase the allies defense, which is okay in all battles. But overall, like, I couldn't really find a build that would suit him. And I'm not really sure what he's supposed to be, because this buff does nothing. Like, even if you fully max it out, like I'm going to get this ultimate in 10 seconds, which is not fast enough for arena, but it's still fast enough that if you have like another control unit, he can definitely place that. But it's no point to do it. Like, resurrection by itself is a very, it's only strong when you have a very tanky team and you're trying to stall out somebody. But without that, it's not the greatest thing anyways. So just give him the resurrection too, then I think it can be really, really interesting. He does place this on the summons, but the summons don't resurrect. So for those of you wondering, like, if this buff is going to go on in the summons, it does go on, but they just don't resurrect. Next up, let's talk about his inspiration. So apparently that they say like how to obtain is through summon heroes. So I'm assuming that this is pure speculation, by the way. They haven't said anything to me, so big disclaimer here. But my guess is that he's going to be summonable right after the event is over, or if not then definitely next season. if he's going to be the same reward for the season, next season as well, then it's going to be pretty bad because you want new champions, and he's not that strong that you want to, fight for him as well. So let's look at his inspirations as well. So when an ally dies, heals the hero by 15% HP. Again, I'm not sure if this is going to proc when a summon unit dies, like for example when a skeleton or a fear bear dies, this is going to proc or not. When heroes is below 60%, this is a good one. I think this is very similar to what we have on Kairosos, who is an elemental exclusive as well. Skill haste, always nice. Accuracy is required for his battle skills, and then increases the ultimate skill energy by 5. This is 5 seconds, so it goes down to like very it will go down to like close to 5 seconds with some haste on him. So this is pretty good, but I personally don't like these ones where they give skill haste and enlightenment. I think it makes the game very much pay to win if that happens, because skill haste should never be. Skill haste is a very strong mechanic in the game, and it shouldn't be something that is given on inspirations. I'm okay with these stat boosts and like there has to be something for everybody to enjoy or to have a dupe of some legendaries. But having these kind of passives is okay, but not the skill haste and ultimate energy reduction. That thing is just pure nonsense for me. They should probably remove that from every hero. It just doesn't make any sense. So let's take him to Vortex, see what we can do with him. So I'm gonna take out Torin here. I was trying a team with Torin. The problem with him is that he's not cleansing anything. He's a great healer for arena, where his passive is like really strong, but outside of arena, like you really struggle to do much with him, especially in Vortex 4 where he's placing the defense down, and that's what makes summons a bit weak as well. A lot of other affinities get weak just because they don't really have a cleanser. And in poison, poison is already very strong because they have Lothair, but they also have somebody like Ogok, who is an amazing carry, right? Like he's doing attack down, he is healing on his battle skill as well, and he's doing an immortality and heals. So it's very powerful, this thing. And let's just save this team as, I think I was using this as test, so let's just remove her, edit lineup, because I do want to make the skill timing change for this boss. And we're gonna put in Galliore this time instead of Premstar. Although actually it would be a fair test if we put Premstar in, because last time I didn't really have like 500 bonus, and I think I may not even have it this time. But he's probably gonna replace my Zephy in the last test that I did with this team. So we're gonna put his skill to 20 and his to also 20, and then we're gonna save this. Alright, so we're back in with the team. We've fully gated, and let's just go over the team real quick. So I have Luilanis here. She's going to be crazy high DPS, so we have close to like 350% crit damage. She's also going to gain crit damage from her passive, and we have close to 100%. It's 83% right now, but I just didn't have the gear to get it to full 100%. I think I'm really lacking the runes, crit rate on the runes, so once I get those, I think she will be pretty good. And we have her exclusive artifact, which gives 80% crit damage, and she spawns 3 of her minions right at the beginning of the fight, and the Dragonheir will ignore 75% of the enemy's defense, and the damage from her Dragon of Death will increase by 20%. So this is pretty good, right? This passive, actually Dragon Blood, gives her 1.5% extra attack and crit damage. So yeah, she can really smack, like in arena, especially if you're facing against tanky teams who just slow kill you, or either just like, don't do any damage and they don't take much damage. She's very hard counter for them. Then next up we have somebody like Ogok, who's going to be healing and cleansing, and that's the problem, right? Like I cannot use anybody from Frost or from summons who is able to do a cleanse. I can probably use somebody like where did the girl go, Thea, who's also placing like debuff immunity, but then I don't have heals, right? I have somebody like, I'll have to replace a DPS, and I don't think that would do more damage in general. So next up, we're gonna have Erzilas. He's going to be having the Witches Remain artifact on him and decent amount of skill haste. We also have somebody like Utior is going to be in our 3-year emblem set. He's going to have the defense artifact, which is going to be the Drugos Blastjaw, and it's going to reduce the damage from the boss. Typically, you want like decent enough accuracy, so 280 is the requirement, so anywhere close to 230 is good. But yeah, I kept it like this for him because I really tried using him in a lot of different areas and I just wasn't impressed. And you will see like the damage numbers are not going to be that high. He doesn't really bring much to the team. That's the problem with him. It's a very, very weak legendary, and considering that the affinity that he belongs to is already pretty weak, there are some really amazing champions here, but in general, there's no synergy in these teams, right? You have very, very good champions in the faction, but again, no synergy at all. So we're going to be using him with Drugos Blastjaw and try to see if he can keep up the attack down on the boss. Next up, we have Premsa, who's going to be in our Platinum Knight set, and she's going to be hopefully be doing some crazy amount of damage with her derived damage. But we'll see. So I gotta place her here because I have the Queen's Fan on her, so based on the tile range, it's an additional 7% extra damage. So let's jump right into it and see how well we do the fight. So I'm gonna be stopping these ultimates right now. I don't want to ultimate with either. So we didn't crit on the first hit. That's pretty bad. And we resisted our... I mean, Azealas has high enough accuracy, so I'm not sure why we got resisted there. But you see, this defense down basically just kills you. And right about here, we're going to have the defense up. So I'm hoping that between Ogok and Utior, they're able to keep up with the attack penalty too. And they're also able to do, you know, enough heals and provide enough sustain to the team. They don't really have an ultimate that does attack down, and it can be bad in certain situations simply because you definitely want the attack down right about where the boss is just about to do his first skill, where he's about to hit you with his last skill. So it happens somewhere around here, and that's where you want to place that attack down, so then you are covered for the 2 extra skills of the boss. These happens within the next 10 seconds. So you cover yourself for 3 strikes of the boss. But with a battle skill, it's much harder to control. So at that time, you're just hoping for extra skill haste, and you're just hoping that, you know, that these debuffs stay on the boss when he's doing his big hits. So my call of lightning is going to be Utior in this fight, because he's not a healer. So that's who I'm going to pick. In my opinion, like, having your healer as your defense down, as your call of lightning tank, is a really big mistake, because if your healer dies, the whole team will die, you know, very shortly afterwards. But if the tank dies, you can still sustain 1 or 2 more turns with your healer, and, you know, you can squeeze out that extra bit of damage. So you can see, like, he's providing this defense down and resurrection on death to all these summons, but they don't really, like, these ones died, but they won't resurrect. Like, Leolanis didn't consume them. So that's one of the things that, you know, I feel like, again, we got resisted. That's what's wrong with this game. But it's weird. Like, he doesn't synergize well with the summons. Like, he should be taking in, like, you know, when Leolanis is consuming them, they should be resurrecting, or something should be happening here where he's strong enough to justify it as an event. The event is very expensive if you think about it, right? You have to summon for like 100 dice. You have to make like 6 teams. It's a very hardcore event. I mean, it gives you something to do in the game. That's definitely there. But in general, it's not an easy event to get through. And the reward is this guy, which is pretty lackluster, because even Eric, right, who's a free champion, I use him daily, right? I use him with my Flora team, and he's one of the best units to have with the Flora team. So having somebody like Utior isn't really a great option. And even then, like I had to substitute Torin, who is a good healer in PvP, but with Ogok, who's breaking the 5 affinity rule, and I'm not getting the level 7 of the Psychic Core bonuses. So it kind of really hurts the team, but yeah, there's no other option. Like, so if they made Utior similar to what Ogok does, right? You could have a defense up and cleanse after like 5 seconds or something like that. Whatever you like, I would have been very happy with it, because then you can really make a team, right? With just your summon team, right? Necrotic team would be really good then. There are some really good DPS. There are derived damage dealers in this faction, but of course they're not as strong as Flora, Lothair, or some of the other exclusive champions, but they're still pretty strong, and you should be able to have an option where, that's why I definitely feel that this kit needs to be revised, so that at least people can play him on the Vortex. Like, add a cleanse maybe. Right now there is a cleanser in Necrotic, and that's Gulent, but the problem with Gulent is that her ultimate recharge time, she's more of an arena unit first of all, or he is more of an arena unit, but the problem with his ultimate is it's 24 seconds, and the recharge time is way too long. Like, even if I add skill haste, I won't be able to get the full functionality of her ultimate. So I cannot time it to a 20-second. I will have to put like some other artifacts, maybe like that gives extra skill haste, and then you're losing damage. So those are all the things to like consider when you're building teams like this. And I was hoping like Utior would be able to prove that, but he's not a good tank. He's not a good he's a support unit, but he just doesn't do much in the team. Like, what benefit am I getting from Utior besides this attack down being placed? But I could have easily swapped in somebody else who does attack down in the summons, right? So I really don't get the point of his skills. We're close to like 38 million, and it's been like 5 minutes. I'm usually at like 100 plus million by this time. It's a bit strange, his skills. He doesn't really fit in the summons. He's I think like just there, maybe make like this defense up is basically doing nothing for the entire team. Defense up does help your survivability a bit, but I would have much preferred like something like a big shield, like something like what Kairosos does, or something much more like what Mithrasi does. If he did what Mithrasi does, even on like his ultimate where he just resurrects people, he would be much stronger. But having just a buff, it's not ideal, especially in arena too. If you're thinking about playing him in arena, one of the most commonly used champion in arena these days is what's her name, Tamar. And what Tamar does is basically, so now we resurrected Utior and our skill timing is a bit off, so I'm gonna try to shut down this. Oh, it already happened. But the problem with facing Tamar is that she applies a block buffs, right? So if he's not cleansing, if he would cleanse and then place this buff, I would say like, okay, it's still okay. He's doing something more. But compared to like other teams which are doing like 5 different things on their ultimate, this is not as strong. Even as a mid tier, he has issues where he can be placed. He doesn't really have a team for himself. He's usually going to be using, you probably will be relying more on other summons, right? Other necrotic units than him. Like, Torin is much better than him because his passive is amazing for arena. So even though you don't use him in PvE, you will be thinking about using him in PvP more often, right? Whereas, okay, my whole team is almost dead. And yeah, as a tank, he didn't do his job. I had the same gear on Kairosos, who survives for much longer. But regardless, I think we did about, well, how much we did? 51 million. Not bad, but I'm pretty sure like without this guy, I can do much more. I think with Zephy, I did somewhere close to like 63, 73 million. This team is not fully ideal. I don't think Premstar and Lulanis are the best for summons Vortex team. I saw a team recently that used Galeore and Sharlak, so that is much better, but still relied on Ogok just because it's very hard to build a team around him. And let's quickly jump into Arena as well, see what he can do there. Hopefully I have enough tokens. I was doing Arena recently. And this is actually a good way to actually showcase one of the new features in Arena as well. So once you climb too high in Arena, you'll be facing these mysterious adventures, right? And you're like, it's pretty cool the way they've built it. But let's go to my Necrotic team, right? So currently my Necrotic team, I'm using somebody like Berengar, who is basically an immortal unit. He gains passive, his passive, he gains a lot of HP and he heals a ton, right, by himself. You don't need anybody, and especially with the Iron Maiden artifact, where he's going to be applying attack penalty, but also a shield of that is of 12% max HP. Like, yeah, you will see him basically being unkillable. So I don't really get what this team is, what the other person has built, because there doesn't seem to be much going on. But this is actually a great example to showcase, like, because they're using Tamar. Wait, they're using a Queen's fan? Like, I get this is a bot, but the bots need to think as well. So let's plug in him instead of Gulend. Gulend is actually pretty good in PvP. But yeah, PvE, where you cannot take the boss's ult like Vortex, is really bad. So let's see what the way we will build him. Probably go with HP defense. I think this is fine. Resistance is good. HP defense here. We can probably pick something here, so we have some accuracy as well. And let's just pick, yeah, this is fine. We'll grab something from the epics, give him that 40% defense, and let's just chug some gear around him. I honestly don't want to mess around with my other teams that much, but okay, this has defense. Let's go. Wow, terrible rolls. So let's play something. Anything upgraded? Okay, this is upgraded fully. And do we have anything here? So Mithraces. Actually, I can use Garika. I'm not using her that much. So we only have 124, which is fine. We don't really need much. I mean, I can probably go with something more with accuracy. Ruin. Wow. I have an accuracy ruin on Leolanis for Arena. I didn't realize that. But let's check this team out, like how well it does. So we'll cruise through this one very relatively fast. Either we'll lose or win. But since we both team have nukers, it's going to be very straightforward. This is the one we want to see. What does he bring to the table? So if you think about it, like, it's so weird. Like, the only thing that I'm looking for now is the healing prohibition from him, right? But Gulend does it on his passive, right? And it's much more powerful because it's going to take effect multiple times, right? Where compared to somebody like Utior, it's just, yeah, weird. So what is his range? So let's just place him. Let's move him here and let's move him here. And we're going to be, so even if my whole team die, Berengar will solo this. But let's see how it goes. Because if I'm thinking about it right, like, there is just an attack down champion. There's only one nuker here. So that's a full max Garrett bot. Cool. So let's see how well we do. This should be supposed to be relatively straightforward. So we lose in this one. Yep. Now this is the fight that I want to see. So he hasn't placed his battle skill at all, and now we are buff blocked. So that's the big problem, right? Like, we are being buff blocked by a champion, and now he's going to try to place his resurrection, but the only person he has managed to do it on is, yeah, that's the problem with it, right? Like, he basically didn't do anything. Like, he couldn't help he died very quickly, and he didn't keep my tank alive either. So that's the biggest problem with this team, right? If I brought in somebody like Goland, who you saw basically kind of nuked my other team, it's pretty strong, like in a summon team. Whereas in this case, oh, they're gonna die from healing. Yeah, Berengar heal reversal is just too good. But that's the, like, I can't find a spot where he would fit, and that's just a general feeling, like, what exactly is he built for? Like, is he there for like anything to do in this game? He's squishy, so you have to keep him far, but his battle skill is 3 tile range, and his resurrection doesn't really go on anybody. So it's just too little that he brings to the table to be utilized in the team. And don't worry about this fight. The points don't matter against Mysterious Adventure. You can basically just practice as much as you want, which is good if you're like, really high on the arena. You have something to do in the game. But yeah, it's just, he's not worth it. I can't think about a single area of the game where he would be useful. Or maybe there's a content that will come out later that he'll become a bit better on. But right now, as of this moment, like, he's complete garbage. And let's just skip it. They will fight forever. Let's see, we lose any points. No point loss. So it's pretty good, right? You can just practice your heart out on these things. And these bots are really, really strong. Like, they're stronger than the normal players I fight. Because I've been fighting like the top players over here, but yeah, these bots are crazy strong. Like, you have to think like 50 times of them going on. And let's look at the event. They added something to the store or somewhere where you can buy these. So 700, basically you can say like 700 of these gold crystals, and you can only get this by buying anything. It's not based off of Wind Marrow, where you can, somehow save enough to get it later. So the way they've done it is very interesting. So they made it show that it's pay to win, right? You can buy up to 50 of these amethyst crystals, and it's decent enough. So you don't have to spend on summoning. You can just spend here. But I would rather tell you, like, if you're planning to buy this, just summon. This dude is not worth it. Yeah, I had a suspicion that the only reason that I was waiting to give a verdict on him was because of his passive, right? I thought that this would work with your necrotic summons dying, but that is so not the case, and that is just so awful. If this worked with the summons, yeah, he would be really powerful, because then he's constantly getting this ultimate up and your whole team has a defense up. Even if you're facing somebody like Tamar or any block buff champion, you could do something to get rid of that block buff. You could really think about it and make a team. But when it's just like 20 seconds, like, it's not worth it. This battle skill is okay. That's the only best part about his skill. But this battle skill is very, very common. The attack penalty 2 is mostly what you're considering about. Healing prohibition is strictly for PvP. Attack penalty 2 on a battle skill is very common. Even the free epic Horus has it. So yeah, not a big thing going on here. It's like Ogok heals and does attack penalty 2. So if you compare him to somebody who's also a non-exclusive champion, yeah, Ogok is much, much stronger for a support unit. And even in this faction, which was already lacking decent support, you saw my Vortex run. Even with all the legendaries within the affinity, I cannot make a 5 affinity team that will last longer. That's the problem. So why not make him something close to what Ogok is? Give us something, instead of this resurrection at death, give us something, a cleanse with a strong heal, not like a Goland heal. Because Goland you can't really use in Vortex that much because of this 24-second ultimate. If it would be 20 seconds, it would be fine. I don't know why they chose to do a 24-second, but yeah, it hits also pretty hard, uh, especially if you build her with like a lot of attack and crits. Yeah, he can hit hard. But yeah, I'm disappointed in the event overall. Not the event. I think the event was still fine. Doing the bosses and everything, there was something to do in the game in the mid season. But the champion is just too garbage. So you can still get a legendary for the sake of it, but overall, will I be using him anywhere in the game? Not really, unless you buff him like, you know, to make him viable in certain teams. Because someone's really need a good support. They really needed this attack penalty to kind of a legendary, but they didn't provide it. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you guys next time. Until then, take care.